To order. Public comment session. We have no one here to make any comments, so we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Everyone has a copy of the minutes ahead of time. Are there any corrections, additions? Hearing none, minutes are approved as presented. Same with the vouchers. Everyone has gotten an advance copy of the vouchers. Any questions about any of the entries? If not, that report is accepted. Go now to the monthly reports for May. Mr. Fagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you have the revenue and expense summary for the fiscal year through May 2019. For the month, the electric department had a $131,000 loss, and the water and sewer department had a $49,000 loss. This is one of those months where we have three payrolls. Twice a year we have three payrolls. This is one of those months, so that's the case here. I was anticipating a loss in both departments, so it was no surprise. If you look at where we are year to date, the electric department remains $524,000 ahead of the forecast, and the water and sewer department, while it shows $80,000 ahead of the forecast, that is a little bit deceiving because of this grant money coming in early. We're really more like $240 behind the forecast. So the reason for that was the sales were down, the expenses were up. That's like what I call a double whammy. You got less sales, higher expenses, it gets you two ways. As far as the electric department, the reason the electric department has done so well is the margin between the electric sales and the power cost is over $600,000 ahead of the forecast. Our expenses are running a little higher than we anticipated. It's been a tough year as far as weather, as far as crews and overtime and things like that, and in both departments. So expenses are running a little higher than we anticipated, but all in all, both departments are financially sound. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless somebody wants to get more specific.
Any question about the financial reports?
I had a question about, and I asked you this before, and I just needed it reinforced. On the days of cash,
Yes.
we went from 9 days of cash a year ago to now we're up to 21 days of cash, or maybe better. Can you explain how we've been able to accomplish that?
We borrowed money, and for our capital projects, we borrowed $7 million a couple of years ago, and we've been doing drawdowns on that as we use the money for capital projects. Normally, we would take that cash out of our monthly operation money coming in, and we would spend it on capital projects. But by borrowing that money, we've been able to save money in our normal operating funds and build those cash balances up. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Dudley. Now the project reports, I assume.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Page.
Thank you. In electric, we're tracking 3 work orders, all deal with replacing conductor to a larger size conductor. We are 100% complete. In Norris, this was the last of 3 phases for almost $900,000, and that's given us a great capability to improve that system from when it was put in, it was a 4 kV system, and now it's 13,000 volt system, and we're also then able to do a better job switching load, and it's fully integrated into our Flizzer system now. So all of that's a real positive for our friends in Norris. The Dutch Valley Road, a lot of that again is to get to this 336 all aluminum conductor, and that brings a lot of what we currently have in behind the fields and backyards, and the shortest distance between point A and B is a straight line, but that's not always the preferred method. We brought a lot of that back out to the street. That serves Cofield and Oliver Springs, and Cofield and Oliver Springs for transmission is on a radial from TVA. So it's vulnerable to an outage, assuming something happens upstream into the transmission from TVA. This gives us more capability to do switching and load transfer in order to push energy up to the Coalfield, Oliver Springs folks if we lose our feed from TVA. So it's about quality of service. It always is about quality of service and how to give us capabilities in order to, in a very bad situation, see if we can't get them some power if TVA drops out. So that is our biggest work order for this next fiscal year. We are just starting that, and we look forward to getting that underway and to have completion on that, so it'll give us that kind of flexibility to not only move some of these wires and poles from out in the field to road frontage where we're on state right-of-way. It gives us a better capability for reliability when we can drive down and see if there's anything down, and generally we can keep that a lot clearer. The third work order in electric that we're working on is West Wolf Valley, and we've just started that too. Y'all approved that last month. We're rerouting that for better access and improved reliability, and all of these we put communication devices on in order to integrate that into the Flizzer system, and everything now that we do is tied to our ability to minimize the numbers of folks that are out dealing with any one incident at any one time, where we can automatically switch up or manually when we have to switch up in order to reduce that area that is caused the event. We push it all the way up as close as we can on both sides, and then we isolate what's in the middle, and what's in the middle is what we're out there with our trucks trying to repair. But the closer we can get to that event, the fewer customers are without power. So those three work orders, we've got one essentially complete that we're doing. We're bringing all of our costs associated up to date on that, and two that we're just starting. Any questions that I can answer on that? Mr. Chairman, if you like, I'll move on to water and sewer. Not a whole lot different than what you saw last month. I put 5% down. We were at 70. Now I'm putting 75 just to show you there's progress. But that's debatable. You know, we hope to be finished that project by the end of next month, and that'll really be the telltale sign. But if you want to argue percentage points, I won't argue with you on that. So that is moving forward. Of course, that's on pump stations 17 and 22. They're 30-year-old stations, and we're trying to bring them back up to speed. That's all. That's all I have, and of course, we always provide you with the closing. Yeah.
You gonna do the closing report?
Yeah, I generally don't have much to say, other than we provide you that information. We see two that are closed and one that is pending. You know, that phrase, "it is what it is what it is." So we're pretty much there. You can see we've closed where we've got a work order at 81. We estimated it at 98, so we're a little under there. But I never really am proud about that, because we do these work orders so far in advance, and depending on what we see out there is how long it takes. So we're generally within a pretty good line on that. This big one, we were very close to upgrading the pump stations, because we contract a lot of that out, so it's not like there's variable cost too much that can get into it. So that's just right under this cost estimate.
We have a 10% contingency.
We do,
built in them, so-
which is a buffer. It's a good buffer. That's right.
Okay, any questions on any of the projects or comments? If not, we'll move on to the pension plan fiduciary oversight. All right, Dudley, are you doing that?
Yeah, I'll do that. This is what we do every quarter. it was Greg Ernie and I, and it's just Greg and I, we meet with USI and we go over this quarterly report. And
Does
they make-
Zach meet with you on those?
Does who?
Zach?
No. But he's the one that guided us to the idea that we should get it board approved for protection for all of us, which was a good move. And all they do is they go through this, they show us where we're at, any changes that they recommend or suggestions. There were no changes recommended at this time. Everything looked solid. And that's really all I've got to say, but we do want board approval that this has been reviewed.
Well, the plan has done tremendously well in investments. So, I mean, the return on that is significant. It's on page 37 if you want to look at any of that. We ourselves added 420,000, but the investment gain in that was 1.3 million. 37 on that, Dudley. That should be the next
It's actually
one.
40s, right there.
Yes,
That's where
sir.
we want to be.
That's right.
I
So-
think when we had the review, they said we were well above what the recommended.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Yeah, of course, we always are that, but you get to the, we look at what the blended, some of the blended, indexes are in order to get comfortability that the return on our investment mirrors at least some of these blended indexes that we look. We have at least two that we look from. And then on 44 is where they give us our due diligence updates, and that's where everything is on hold. So there are no recommendations for change, and to be honest with you, and I'm assuming that Bob's not going to look at this, but Dud and I don't do a lot of pushback on different investments that they recommend. We look at Morningstar with them, and we listen to their reasons for the recommendation for a change. And very rarely, and only with very good reason, would we not agree to their recommended changes in strategy for specific stocks, bonds, or whatever. We also looked at they're in compliance with what our percentages are by classifications and whether they're compliant or not. Of course, they're always compliant, so we feel real good about that. But that is what we do to meet the requirements and regulations in order to review the investments by quarter for our investment plan. And then, when you see this report, it's so big, and I think it's designed to just overwhelm you with.
Yeah, I didn't spend.
There's
too
not a
much
whole
time.
lot of meat in this at all. There's pretty colors and things like that, but the real meat, I think, is what we just tried to give you to glean through that in order to best represent what we do. Where are we financially within our pension? We are way past solid. We're very, very good on that. And then annually, we'll have Bob Cross come in and give you an annual report. But this is just a quarterly investment report that we look at all the time.
I make a motion that we accept the recommendations as provided by our investment manager.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Is our employee base baby boomer dominated so that we're gonna see a stressing of the pension plan
No,
these days?
no, the good news about that and how that works is they do a required minimum contribution based on the demographics. So irrespective of what that demographic is, we're constantly funding for that. So as the baby boomers essentially push towards the end, that's been woven within our contribution based we're looking at a 7.5% investment return, which is the assumption that we use for return. Now, most years we exceed that. You say, and that's good because every now and then we don't. So that seems to be a pretty good number. So with the investment return, then they look at the mortality rates for how long they expect you to live if there is an annuity associated with that. Then they look at their salary, and then they extrapolate a percentage that your salary will grow, and I think they use about 3% for that, and assuming that your salary through age retirement, and we're set up to do 2% funding for an annuity, essentially for your retirement of what your salary is that you would qualify for 30 years. So it's 2% for each year for 30 years, which then would be 60% of your base of your salary that they'll fund for an annuity that will go for life. And then that life then is based on the mortality rates that they're using. And anytime they change that, it changes, some of what goes on. But that's constantly looked at all the time annually. And then they give us, here's the number in order to meet the requirement of a contribution that takes into consideration these factors and assumptions. And in order to meet, that's the minimum you have to put in to meet that requirement. Now, what we're finding and what you read about is most folks are not doing that. Many folks, TVA is not even doing that. We not only do that, we exceed that. We always exceed what the minimum is. We don't pay the minimum, we pay over the minimum. And when we get to 100% funded, then we'll look at maybe not doing that. But I think the baseline, the rule of thumb, the industry rule of thumb is 80% and above, you're in great shape. 70 to 80, you need to keep your eyes open. Anything below 70, you need to do something. You need to take steps to do something about. And some we find, even utilities, they're in the 40% range, you see? So they've kicked that can down, so they're always meeting their current retirees' obligation. But if the shop closed that day, they are so far behind that it's significant. And we are not. If our shop closed today, we would be in great shape.
Municipalities have that problem too.
Tremendous problem.
Ponzi scheme, really.
Memphis, it's easy to do because it's not a current expense, it's a long-term obligation, and you just use today's funds where you should be investing those because you compound. Not only do you make a contribution, that contribution then isn't expected to make an investment return. So when you don't put the contribution in, you're not only robbing the pension fund from the initial contribution, you're robbing it from the compounding interest over a long period of time. And that's significant.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second to approve the review. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, approval of the bad debt write-off. Dudley or Greg? Dudley?
Our bad debt write-offs have to be approved every year, and you have a detailed list, and it shows that our total write-offs are $101,000. And I'd like to show you these charts just to help you. And I'm not gonna go through this whole presentation because I know most of you've seen it, but when we started FlexPay back in March of 2013, we had 0 customers on this FlexPay prepay program. Target I always thought was around 10%. Once we got to 10%, that's about where our saturation point would be, because people like myself and you all are most likely not going to get on this plan. You're going to stay traditional bill. But this offers these people an option when they come in. Instead of paying a high deposit to set service, they can get on this prepaid program buy it just like they're keeping gas in the tank, and that's the way we advertise it. Just like gas in the tank, you have no deposits, no monthly bills, no late fees, no trip fees, no reconnect fees. We're not bombarding these people with fees. And our study showed that 60% of our bad debt write-offs were at a location less than 2 years. They move in, they start building a big bill, they get behind on their rent, they get behind on their internet and cable and everything else. So we thought if we started this program, within 2 years, we should see a big drop. And here's kind of how it turned out. In 2009, our write-offs were as much as $327,000 a year. And we started this in March of 2013, so the first year, we didn't quite have 2 years, so we had, it dropped a little bit. The second year, it dropped to 142, and then we've come all the way down to around right at $100,000 a year. That's a significant drop from where we were. The next part of that is, with the flex pay, a person comes in, for example, and they owe $600 where we've written them off before. And we say, well, you gotta, in the old days, we'd say you gotta pay the $600 plus a $200 deposit, and they would just walk out the door because they can't come up with that. Under this program, we say, here's what we'll do. We'll put it on debt recovery, which is where for every dollar they pay, 30 cents goes towards their old debt. And that's what we call recoveries. As they pay it, we get 30 cents. They buy $1, they get 70 cents to use, 30 cents to pay on their old bill. And over time, that has significantly increased what we've been able to collect. Before, like I said, they would say, I ain't got it. And they'd walk out the door, and then grandma would come in and put it in her name or something like that, or they would go to another system. So it's giving them a way to pay back their debt in a fair way, and it adds up to a lot of money, as you see. The net, so you take your write-offs, have your total write-offs less what you recover, and you have a net write-off every year. So our net write-off back in 2009 was $261,000. Our net write-off in these last few years has been $48,000, $20,000, $34,000, and $57,000 this year. You gotta say the program works. It's successful. It's really helped our customers.
Yes.
It's helped our customers a lot.
It's popular with the customers too.
Oh, yes. I mean, that's why you see that kiosk going all the time, because they can come up with $50 a week, but they can't come up with $200 at the end of the month, and then they don't pay that, and then they have a late fee on top of that, and then we go out and knock on their door, and that's another fee, and then we cut them off, and to get it back on is another fee, and that's how those bills get so built up. Then they write a bad check, and then we're in a place where they can't recover. This keeps them from getting in that position. It helps them help themselves. It reduces their monthly usage because they're more conscientious of what they're using every day, especially when they get low. We've got 2,441 customers active right now. Our total recoveries, because not ever, when I showed you debt recovery a while ago, that's the ones that we'd previously written off. Now we got a customer that's on the old billing system. He's in that position where he's $300 behind. He can't pay it. What can I do to keep the power on? Well, we say, well, we'll apply your deposit. Now you just owe $100. We'll put the $100 on debt recovery, and then we'll put you on prepay. So that helps them get caught up.
And no
so to
reconnect
speak.
fee.
So in that $700,000 is what's gone through. That 30% has added up to $700,000 in those few years. Now this just shows you the amount. The system works automated. We don't have to do any work once we set them up, and it takes more time to set them up, which is why a lot of utilities fail at this. That's tried it, because they don't have their CSRs trained to sell it, because CSRs, it's too much trouble to set these people up. They'd rather them get on the old method, and they don't care if you write it off or not. Our people are invested. They understand how this program works. Once you get them set up, the text messages are automated, the emails are automated. It turns them on, turns them off automatically if they don't pay. So if you look at this, and this is in a day, how many emails and text messages went out? If you look at the last 30 days, 14,000 text messages went out. And that's telling people, hey, you're down to $20, and they can set that alert to anything they want. If they want it to be $50, it'll tell them then. But they said it, it's saying you're down to this. Uh-oh, you're out. Uh-oh, you're gonna be cut off if you don't get it caught up. So the system works fabulous. And the result of that is they benefit and we benefit in this write-off. So, but
You're down to Wednesday and you get paid on Friday. You can get somebody to give you $20. You see, we've had customers that their trip fees and their reconnect fees and their late charges added up to more than a month's usage, the cost for a month. So they were essentially paying for over 13 months of electricity. You see, by getting on this, they save over a month. Many of them save over a month because they're not dealing with these charges, and they do a better job of monitoring what it is that they're using, because Mama's got this on her phone, and Joey has got hot water rolling, until he turns into a prune, and she's stopping that because she can see what does that cost. She can find out what it costs for you to have company come for the weekend, because they monitor that all the time, what they want. And when they get down low, what's their lowest amount that we've had come where people put back on here, Dudley,
in that machine,
in that machine?
oh, I've seen $1, $2 at a time.
Well, they'll come for a couple of dollars just to get them on the E,
Just
to
to
get them
stay
through the night.
positive, because they got to stay positive. Once they go dark, then we make them pay get to $25, not a fee. But we make you get your tank up to $25.
Did you create this, Dudley? Is this your brainchild?
A lot of it, yeah.
He's gone
Wonderful.
around.
This is great, Dudley.
He was on what the tech board of CSA and pressed for this because we saw this is a need. There's a real need for our customers. Ancillary to that, we're saving money, as he showed you.
Right.
But our primary goal was, how can we help these folks that are getting killed with these fees? You feel terrible. They can't pay anyway, and then you go out and a trip fee because you could knock on their door before you cut the lights on. And if you do that, it costs us money, so we have to charge you to go out there. Do you see? So they just get themselves deeper into the hole, and this. So he's pushed for this, and he has been asked, and he has been on numerous times that he's gone to not only have utilities come here, a lot of utilities come here. I mean, but he's given talks and speeches and everything, and promote on how to do it. Again, if your motive is to provide the service, then you're going to do it. If your motive is because you're going to save money, then those fail, because that's not enough for them to push through. They've got to see past that and see the service to their customer.
Do you
So
have any idea about how many utilities have gone to this system?
Well, recently, if you look at like Sevierville, it's going to look very similar to ours, because I send them all the stuff and then they just copy it and make it happen. So Sevierville's gone, Morristown started, Harriman wants to, but they just don't have the infrastructure to do it. Lenore City has just started. Rockwood has started. KUB can't do it because they don't have the infrastructure in place to do it. You gotta have the AMI system in place to do it.
now, we've been on this thing 6 years.
And most of these, if you go look at their website, it's gonna look very similar to ours. And they
Because They
use
just
the
changed
same
the name.
FlexPay, you know, because they're just taking mine and making it work. But the program is successful. Our customers that used to come in mad at us because we cut them off are now they come in mad at themselves. I let that run out again. They take ownership to the fact that they didn't pay it and it got cut off. But to get cut back on, it doesn't really cost them anything other than get caught up, put $5 in the tank. So they don't feel like we're gouging them with fees. I've had them come up to me in the grocery store and say, oh man, I love this. It's really helped me. It's helped me a lot. It helps them budget. It helps them on their usage. I think studies show they use 10% or more less because, as Greg says, they're managing it well. They don't have 3 TVs on in the house with one person watching it like at my house. So they manage it better. So.
I make a motion that,
I think we need an approval for what, to write off $57,000?
Yes.
Well, the total write-off, need approval for the total write-off of $101,831.50
So
Net
moved.
write-off? Okay,
for the total.
so moved. Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, that's all of the current business. Any other business?
Yes,
Start
sir.
with Mr. Fay.
I just have several things. Next month, just to let you know, we're looking at the annual review of our self-funded health program. We're looking forward to some good news on that also. And also, you may recall, last month I mentioned that at the request of TVA, that Jeff Lash, which is the CEO, wanted to talk to me about the ongoing negotiations between the 154 power distributors in the valley and about the contract flexibility, which we desperately need, and the protections for our customers if TVA is sold. I brought this up to him at my meeting in Asheville at our TV PPA meeting. I had dinner with he and his wife, and I brought this up, and he said, well, I'll get with you. Well, he did, and I appreciated that. And so I met with him for about an hour and a half. It was very productive and a positive meeting, and that's when I interjected the Bull Run issue, because I wanted to get that on his plate up front as the new CEO coming in. We've done due diligence on that vice president level, and I just wanted him to be aware, especially since that very next Monday, he was giving a talk right down there at Bull Run. So that went very well. Jeff asked my opinion in that meeting on how to best find the resolution on the critical issues that we see, which is this contract flexibility and protections for our customers. And I told him, really, I gave him an earful because I've been working on this a very, very long time. But I told him the centerpiece of my recommendation is to leverage long-term contracts with ability to have flexibility within the power contract so we could address the emerging technologies like solar that are now coming valley-wide that essentially takes KWH out of the public power model, because you've got Sun City and things like that where people are popping up solar stuff all over. I don't think it's cost effective, but it will be one day, and we need to incorporate that into our distribution grid. Anything electric should come from the electric utility. Anything in terms of how all of that works. Customers come to us, can ask, like Walmart, for example, that want minimize their carbon footprint. We don't have a mechanism in place in order to work with them to reduce that carbon footprint other than the energy that we sell through the meter. And if they want to put up solar, they really would like us to put up solar. There are a lot of options. There are solar pods that you can put up that get for several megawatts. There's a lot that can be done, but under the current power contract, the LPCs, local power companies, cannot do anything. So we need that flexibility written into a contract that was designed in the 1930s, which didn't recognize this. And TVA is very protective of this buy all, sell all, where they want 100% requirements from them. Every generating KWH needs to come from TVA. I told him, by the way, we've got a power generator out there that's a backup generator. I said, and every time that we hit peak, where our virtual power plant is shaving peak, that's the time I test that generator to make sure it's working, you see? And in doing that, we lower our peak, so we get money from that. So I said, it's really being done, and now you've got residential, commercial, and industrial customers going to third parties to meet this, so we need the flexibility in the contract. Now, the sale of TVA goes back to Clinton. Every year it's been in the OMB budget to sell assets of TVA. Now, the 9 million customers in the valley paid for all of those assets. If they're sold, who gets that money? Where does that go? Do you say, in other words, we've paid for it, it should stay within the valley and in the customer. So we need protection because we've got people in the White House now that have done things that no one thought would ever happen. So we need protection in case they move forward, because it's in both of their budgets, both of the Trump administration's budgets, to sell assets, and Trump himself has said we need to sell transmission assets because that's the easiest sale. So how do we solve this? And the way I see it, we solve it through a win-win, because we have to do everything as a win-win. It's the appropriate thing to do. And the win-win for us is to work through the contracts because we're on a 5-year rolling contract with TVA. Let's offer an extension in the contract in order to provide us with these flexibilities and protections going forward. And that way, and of course he was open to that because they really would like these long-term contracts. So in doing that, he asked me, what do we need? And I told him we needed to get through the B&T committee, which is the board negotiating team, which I've told you about, that the TVPPA and the 7 States Power Board, which was designed to facilitate assets to resell back to TVA to keep them within the valley, that those 2 boards empowered 4 power distributors to represent them in negotiations with TVA on how do we accomplish these 2 main issues. And that was constituted almost 2 years ago, and we've gotten nowhere with that. And I told them I give TVA 100% responsibility for no progress, or virtually no progress in that. And he says, oh, I'm up, I'm ready to do it. I told him seeing was believing. The bottom line is, I got a call last week, and he would like to meet with me again. The assumption is that he wants to run it by me, what they have come up with as a pre-working draft prior to engaging the B&T committee again, which I'm on, he knows. So that way he'll get an LPC perspective before he throws something out there and gets shot down without having any feedback, So I'm meeting with him Monday here. He'll be here at Cub, and we're going to go over, what he's proposing. And I've notified the other members on the B&T committee what I'm doing to keep them up to speed, and gotten very positive responses back from some and no response back from some others. But in doing that, I'm going to continue to press for this. It's a big thing, it's big working, and if we can get it accomplished, it's going to be a very good thing for the 154, as we do this. And that, I just want to let you know, that's ongoing all the time. So I'm going to do all I can to keep that thing rocking and rolling, and I'll keep you up to speed on how that goes. As you know, promoting economic development is part of TVA's mission. That's part of their core mission, along with with the environment and the lakes and also energy, is promoting economic development. By extension, then that becomes part of our mission too. And that's why we are so heavily involved, specifically CUB is, in economic development. Some other utilities more so than others. But we take that seriously because of what it provides, that benefits not only to our community, which are easy to see, but also the county and also the region. You know, we're very regional in doing that. I want to let you know, because I'm chair of ACETA, that I am going to be looking for an improved structure on how we move forward, given the possibility, the inevitability of our president retiring. Tim is not going to be in that position but so much longer, and there's not a good exit strategy on how we move forward other than just going out and getting another industrial developer. What I would like to see, what I envision, is a greater structure that will incorporate not only economic development but tourism and the chamber's normal functions of residential retail. So I'm going to be getting with the mayors and trying to work out how do we positively move forward and make what we do much better locally. And I think we can do that. And I thought, as my board, and since we're invested in this with them and economic development through ETEDA and ACETA, that this will give you a sense. I've got plans for ETEDA too. I chair that. I'm meeting with the Knoxville new county mayor about what can we do in a similar regional structure for that. So exciting things going forward, and a vision and the plans on how we can make that all together. And I tie that all back then into TVA, because I see the good catalyst for this is our ability to turn Bull Run into a great industrial site. So all of those things working together, that pot's stirring, and I just want to keep you up to speed on that. Sir?
Mr. Fay, I just wanted your opinions. There's been a lot in the newspaper this week about the fly ash.
Yes.
Can you just give the board sort of just general thoughts? I'm not saying that this is exact science here, but just your general feeling and thoughts about it, because I want to separate the hype from the reality, and is it somewhere in the middle?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, because, I mean, it is. I mean, Kingston itself shows you that, what the extreme end of that is. That's like the Fukushima, the tsunami that took that out. It's a rarity, but you need to plan for that kind of thing. You can't say, well, it's 1 out of 100. Well, that's too much. 1 out of 1,000 is too much. I got a call from TVA this week because they're going to be in Kingston. Jeff is going to be in Kingston talking to them in a similar way that he talked about at Bull Run, and they wanted to know if I would come. And I told them that I would be glad to come if I am requested, but if they don't need me, I'm not going to drive to Kingston to be a cheerleader, but I will, but I need to be a person requested. Well, I haven't heard back from them on that. The deal with Kingston is that's wet ash. It was wet. It was designed in the 50s. And the way they did that worked really well because they didn't have a lot going on. You see, what they didn't do, they didn't inspect it well. And then we got biblical rains. I mean, I forget how many inches of rain. It was like a flood. And that finally gave way, which just spilt it all out. Bull Run is different because that's dry ash. The way they work that is dry ash. And that in itself is a byproduct this gypsum board up here is made out of fly ash. I mean, there is a retail market for this stuff. If although there's more fly ash than is needed, but it's not in itself poisonous. The big concern is if it gets into the water cycle. And then how do you contain that? Well, it's not rocket science either on how to do that. The science is there, easily there, and it was designed that way to encapsulate that to where it doesn't seep down into the water system. Now, they've done that at Bull Run. I mean, we look at Paradise. There are a lot of TVA is in the business of closing down coal-fired plants. So they've been down this story road before. So Bull Run won't be the first, to experience this. I believe that they can encapsulate that, monitor that. They have to monitor that for 30 years through TDEC. TDEC will be all over that thing. And the overriding factor is, will it get into the water cycle? Will it get into the water cycle and therefore hurts? But I mean, you can pave parking lots over that thing. I believe you can do an industry right on top of that, because what's under it, what they've lined it with, is going to keep that water from getting into the cycle. And then
So it is lined,
It's
what's
lined.
underneath is lined.
Yeah, well, it's more than just, 0.4 black plastic down there. They've got.
Well, the new Sentinel sort of gave the impression that it was not lined. It wasn't capsulated, or whatever the term they used. And
Well, of course it is, or because they also have piping down through there. And that piping then is the runoff. And that's where they get the samples from, you see? So if that runoff comes in and that sample's gonna show something that's bad, and then there'll be a lot done after that, but TVA will be responsible for that, I think for a minimum. They're gonna monitor it for 30 years, but I assume that there'll be liability that they're gonna retain even after that. The Sentinel is a biased. They're biased in what they do, and they're in the business to sell papers, and I hope they're watching. I don't like any of you over there, you see. But they are biased, and I'm not biased on TVA, but I mean, they've got a great track record, and exclude Kingston because that was an isolated
Outlier.
It was an outlier. There's no question about it. Look where they are on nuclear. I mean, they're world class in what they do. They know what to do. They know how to do it, and they've done this type of thing before. I don't believe at the end of the day, when I look to take that over for an industrial park, that there is going to be any problems at all that day or going forward. I don't believe that there'll be any problem. I can't speak to any fly ash in South Clinton because I don't know what the situation there is, but I do know what we're dealing with at Bull Run, and I don't see any problem with that at all.
thank you.
The last thing I have, which is some more good news, I've hired a new director of water and sewer, and he'll be reporting to work next week. He's a PE. He has 25 years in the water and wastewater industry. He's currently vice president of LDA Engineering. It's out of Maryville, and I think they also are statewide. Part of the thing is they're trying to open an office up in Nashville, which he wasn't too thrilled about. But he's currently vice president of that, and his area of specialization is in water, wastewater collection and water distribution, and he was the manager of water and sewer at LCUB. So he went from there to LDA in Maryville, and so he is essentially a perfect choice and a perfect fit for what we have here. He interviewed really well. I think his personality is going to fit real well, not only within our team, but in our community. I think he's going to be a real plus. And he's gonna, and because we get him from the get-go, we make sure that he's reflective of what we're trying to, especially what we've been trying to accomplish here. So that's coming, and he'll be here next week. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Penny?
I mean, I know we've said this in years past, but the flex pay and what you've done with that, Dudley, is awesome. And
Thank you.
just appreciate, you and the rest of the staff that is so generous with the community to try to help our customers be successful. Cause in reality, it could happen to any of us on any given day. We could be in the same boat where something, just doesn't work the way we planned. So thank you.
Thank you.
And, I'm excited to have a new engineer on staff for our water department, and hopefully, that will lighten the load for you, Greg, and everybody else too. But thank you for all that you've done to get us to this point.
Great, thank you.
Just want to say, I agree with the comments made about flex play. I mean, it feels good. It feels that we are providing a service to people out of compassion, out of kindness, and that's, I think that's what our calling is to do. And I'm very touched by the story and very encouraged, because I feel that that's my creator, my maker would approve. So I wanted to ask quickly an update on our residential policy update. As I know we're sort of talking about having an event perhaps here at Cub to announce the changes, and I also know that we're still in the process of firming some of that up. So if you could just speak to
I can.
where we are on that.
I can, and I have, this is the wastewater and water rules and regulations, which I've worked on to update. And this is 18 pages worth of a guide to new construction. And it has got a letter from me on the front, and then it's got steps. What do you do? Who do you see? When do you go? What's required? And then this is a red line edition of the standard and specifications that it's going to take in order to build. If you're going to build, what is it that you have to do? So I've gone through this. I've got this is what I call a working draft. I've got more working drafts than anybody wants to deal with. But I want to give our new guy an opportunity to comment on this. So we're on the same page. If cutting and pasting from Nashville and from Chattanooga and from some of these other utilities that have it online, if that was against the law of putting it in here, I would be in prison because I have done a really good job of trying to capture all of their, my name is about the only thing that is mine, so I've done a really good job of trying to capture all of their positives in order to make this thing work. So the hiccup obviously was we lost our director, and so it's not that I've been sitting idle. It's just that it makes good sense to me because it's so specific to and I don't want to enlist our consulting firm to review the specifications. I would like this guy to have an opportunity to glean through what we're proposing.
I think that's very
We're
fair.
not hurting anybody currently.
Some of the people that I've spoken to in the community, that they say that there's been an attitude shift, that it's pleasant and they're very happy, and the people that I know that are working with this issue are are pleased, at least the ones I've spoken to.
I had a guy call yesterday or the day before, it doesn't matter, and they're looking to put in some residential homes, and he wanted to know what to do, and of course, I said, I need something to work with so I can do a capacity evaluation, so I need to know how many houses, where you want to do, what kind of land, how far are you, so you get me, I says, and it doesn't have to be the final thing, conceptually, we can talk. I says, I'm going to make it, and I use the word easy peasy, and he just started laughing. So now they're dealing with the utility that uses a phrase, easy peasy. I'm just saying.
That's it, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
The only other thing I wanted to add to that is just to ditto what Penny and Zach have said. This flex plan just feels so good, and thank you, Dudley. I know we've talked about it before, but you've done a lot of work on that, and I appreciate that. I know
Very
the board
proud
does
of
too, and we are too, so thank you for that. And I'm also very proud of when I went to the mailbox a couple of weeks ago and pulled out my mail, and there was Greg Fay on the front of the magazine. So once again, I think we just want to compliment you, and I brought mine, it's out in the car, but would it be appropriate, and may I have permission to leave my copy in the lobby in there? I don't know.
Well, we have
Do you have a copy?
We have some.
Okay, I just want to be sure the public and our employees saw that, but they have seen that.
we'll put a copy out there.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know
No, we
if
have.
you would feel uncomfortable doing that yourself, but I would be very proud to go do that. I want our people to see that and know that.
We'll
and the
put
public.
a copy out there.
Okay.
He's a little bit shy.
Well, yeah, well, I knew that,
He
but.
said shy, not humble.
I addressed humble in that article.
That's just good words, and that just needs to get out where everybody can see it. We're proud of you again.
So much.
His passion for all this, and in the other business, you see his passion
Yeah.
for the entire valley, and
Yeah.
that's why he's on the cover of that
Yeah,
magazine.
yeah, I see it.
Steve? I agree with everybody else. I'm good.
Thank you very much.
Let me